Hello, welcome to Last Bell Boxing. The topic of this video is Beterbiev versus Smith JNR, which hasn't officially been announced yet, but according to reports, is the worst kept secret in boxing. Mooted for the 18th of June, unification fight. So, Andy, I'll give my lowdown first, give my thoughts, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah,
So, obviously, Beterbiev holds the IBF and WBC at the minute. Smith JNR holds the WBO, so two fights at the top of the game. I do believe Beterbiev's about 37 though, isn't it? So he's coming towards the twilight of his career. People rave about Beterbiev, but I'm not a big fan. I think he's a one-trick pony. He's got a good punch, and that's about all you're going to get out of him. So I'm much more of a fan of Bivol. I've got on record of saying that a few times. I think Bivol ties him up in knots and beats him. I think Canelo will beat him as well if they ever meet, because Canelo has been in the ring with punches before. Now, the interesting development on this one, I don't know if you've seen this. Bob Arum has said the winner of this fight is confirmed to fight Anthony Yard in October in the UK.
Wow.
Because Anthony Yard is a WBO mandatory, and that's all done and dusted. So Uncle Bob says. So that puts a slightly different spin on this fight, because now all of a sudden we're a little bit more interested, aren't we? So I think Joe Smith Jr. is going to beat Beterbiev here, because I think he's a better boxer and he can bang. So I'm going to go for Joe Smith Jr. to win this one, round 10. I think he'll stop him. I think Beterbiev, as much as people rave about his punch power, you can't punch what he's doing. So that's my view, Andy. Over to you.
That announcement you just made, I wasn't aware of that. That puts a massive different context on this and makes it a more interesting fight for British fight fans. In my opinion, both Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr., to quote a friend of the show, are on the back nine. Beterbiev, what didn't look great in his last fight, he got that big cut, and he really struggled to get rid of the guy. Joe Smith Jr. isn't active enough for me. That's going to play a big part in this fight. This could go either way.
A bit fresher, though?
Maybe a little bit, but not massively. Not massively. And yeah, I don't know, mate. This is a pick'em. I honestly believe this could go either way, and it's who lands first, in my opinion.
And the interesting thing, Andy, I'm not going to keep bringing politics in, but why are the Klitschko's not shouting for this one to be cancelled when it gets announced?
This is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem. Yeah, what makes you wonder if there's any beef there with Bivol, isn't it?
Or is it because that fight's more high profile?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, this could go either way for me. I think you're right. A few years ago, Beterbiev was real dangerous. He walked fighters down. He didn't let them off the hook. But he's droppable, you know.
Yep.
Johnson showed that. He can get put down. I
don't think he's a fighter that fought Johnson now, though, is it?
No, that's what I mean. He doesn't command the respect in the ring that he did previously. He's not anywhere near as dangerous. He's still dangerous. He's still got the punch power, because that's the last thing that leaves when you get older is your power. Like I say, first one that lands here, but I'm tempted to go with you and go Joe Smith Jr. The interesting thing for me here, though, is I'll come on to Anthony Yard in a sec. But the interesting thing for me here is how tantalising is this, because then that means one champion holds 3 belts.
Yeah.
We're then going to get Canelo and Bivol for the other belt. This definitely becomes an undisputed fight for early next year. Obviously, Canelo's tied up with Triple G end of the year. So for me, you're looking at probably April, maybe next year.
And I've got to admit, I got Yard wrong. I think Yard's a better fighter than I gave him credit for. So I think Yard, will be licking his lips because it's potentially a pathway to a unification fight against Canelo next summer.
Mad, isn't it? Mad.
So, I'm not saying Yard's good enough to beat Canelo or anything like that, but what a payday, if nothing else.
Yeah. Crazy. I mean, does he have a chance against Joe Smith Jr. or Beterbiev?
Yeah.
He has a chance. Is he quite good enough? I don't think so. I don't think so. In my opinion, I think he still needs a little bit. He needs a little bit of understanding of ring craft.
He would benefit from leaving his trainer, and I don't say that lightly, but he would.
I agree. I agree, mate. I agree. Unfortunately, he's in this little bubble of he still thinks he's untouchable, even though he lost 2 fights ago. He still thinks he's untouchable. He doesn't believe he lost that fight, so in his opinion, he hasn't lost.
That's where you got to give him props though, because he's had a rough time with it through COVID.
Yeah, it was horrible for him leading into that fight. It was horrible for him what happened with his family in COVID. I won't wish that on anybody. But in my opinion, he's not in the top 4 light heavyweights in the UK, never mind the world. And
just on the light heavyweight scene, I'd like to start seeing some announcements of Callum Smith.
Don't get me started on that. I don't understand this. I don't understand the dynamic. He goes and wins the World Boxing Super Series in great fashion, and then you hear nothing. He should have been the golden boy for Matchroom Boxing. And he should have gone on and unified the division before Canelo was anywhere near the division.
What I don't understand from Eddie Hearn is, and I'm not going in on Conor Benn here, I know I've had me say on previous shows about him, but just point that to one side. Why is Hearn giving him the push that he's giving him, Conor Benn, and Callum Smith, who I would argue is a bigger ticket seller, has never been given the push or the profile that he deserves? I'd love Eddie Hearn to answer that.
It's all about, why do I think he's doing it? It's all about name.
I'm not sure what else Callum Smith can do.
Well, nothing, mate. He can't do any more than he's done. In my opinion, considering he blew his bicep out in very early on in the Canelo fight, he lasted the whole fight. He didn't put the performance in that me and you know he's got in him, and he'll say that himself. He was disappointed in it, but he blew his bicep out. What do you expect a lad to do with one arm against Canelo?
And Liam Smith, while we had it, Smith had to jump through hoops to get this fight that he wanted. By taking the Fowler fight.
He never gets them on his own terms either, mate. He's always the away fighter. Yeah. He's always the underdog going into someone else's backyard. When is Liam Smith and Callum Smith, when are they both going to get a level playing field where they get a world champion or the best of someone in the division, but on level terms?
Yep. But just coming back to Beterbiev versus Smith, again, I don't want people to think our channel's about Frank Warren loving, but what a job Warren's done there to get Yard that next fight.
Crazy, really, when you think about it. Yeah, he's number 1 with the WBO. But he isn't number 1 with the RBF and the WBC, is it?
No, but what a job. I know him and Arum go back years, but what a job. And he's starting to wonder. Fury speaks very highly of him, don't he? He calls him Magic Man.
Yeah. This announcement, mate, that's just been made, does that all hinge on Joe Smith Jr. winning?
No, it says in the article that I read, the winner will fight Anthony Yard October, November time. In the UK, it stipulates as well. So if Warren has pulled that off, round of applause to Frank, because that is a piece of work, that is. And you got to be honest, Warren's starting to pull some of these irons out of the fire, isn't it?
I tell you what it is doing, mate. It's showing the boxing world, just how important the UK market is to world boxing at the minute.
Well, one thing I'd also argue is it showing that Eddie Hearn spread himself too thin and Warren's capitalising on the UK market? Because if you look at his stable, you know, some of his fighters are in prime position, aren't they? Joe Joyce. You know, again, we're neutral. We've got no vested interest in any promotional company, but credit where it's due, I guess, because we've often slagged Warren off.
Oh, yeah, you can go back on our shows, mate. You can see, call it as it is. We'll give him props if he deserves it. The same with Eddie Hearn, and we'll put them in the place if we feel they deserve it as well.
I mean, yeah, I just think Frank Warren's shown a little bit of experience here and maybe capitalise on Eddie Hearn's move to DAZN. You know, let's have it right. DAZN were looking to buy BT Sports. What does that tell you? Because obviously Frank Warren's closely knit with BT Sports. I'd be concerned about that if I was Eddie Hearn as well. The fact that there's looking, I know they're doing it for a vehicle purpose to push DAZN, but who knows what would have happened if that deal would have gone through?
Well, we've already spoke on a previous video that the profile of boxers are greatly risen when they're on a big network like, well, we said Sky. We'll use Sky as an example because you got BT, you got the likes of football and other big sports on BT as well. So you use them other big sports that have much bigger popularity to promote your boxing shows. That's exactly what DAZN were trying to do. They were going to buy it out, and then they were going to push the boxing on adverts and on other sport shows to rise the popularity and get your general everyday casual back onto boxing, just like Sky do.
Basically, they need to become more mainstream, don't they? That's what we're saying.
They've got no way of dragging in the casual.
And it's interesting. Have you heard that Ben Shalom and Frank Warren are now calling it the app rather than naming it by its name?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I just think Eddie Hearn's brilliant at what he does, and I'm a big fan of Eddie Hearn. You know I am, Andy. I'm a massive fan of what he's achieved and what he's done for British boxing. But there is a few red flags here, isn't there? You know, he was never losing these sort of persons at Sky. You know? And I'd like to get DAZN's take on it. Are they where they thought they'd be in the business plan year 2 or whatever we're in? Has it generated the money it thought it was going to generate?
Does this smack a little bit of they've put all the irons in one fire in Canelo? Have they spent all of this year's budget on 2 Canelo fights?
They can't be cheap, can they?
No.
You know, it can't be cheap.
No. Does that mean the fact that he's lost these 2 purse bids? Does that mean that whoever's holding the purse strings at DAZN, are they saying, right, this is how much you've got to play with for this fight, no more?
I'll suggest so. And another challenge he's got is time zones have always been a problem, haven't they? You know, American fight fans traditionally don't want to be watching UK fight cards in the middle of the afternoon.
No.
And as a rule, us British fight fans don't want to be getting up at crack of a sparrow's arse to watch average fringe world title fights. The big fights, yes, we'll get up. The Tyson Fury versus Wilder, blah, blah, blah. But that's just we're probably hardcore fans.
Yeah.
But your other fights, you know, it's not going to attract the casuals. So it'll be very interesting to see where this own platform go.
But you know, taking the world market out of the context, if you just look at UK, not long ago.
I mean, it took you 4 months to learn how to say it. So the marketing couldn't have been there, could
it? Not long ago, when Eddie Hearn was with Sky, they were the dominant force.
Yeah, and we're spoiled, weren't we? Let's be honest, we're spoiled.
They were great fights. Obviously, you had a lot of pay-per-view, but it was always good. You know, the fact that he's now taken his stable to a platform where they're getting no mainstream publicity has to start that those fighters have to start thinking to themselves, because it's not just about money. It's got to be about who they are and where they go and what happens next. There's going to be a lot of fight fans that have completely lost any sort of context or any sort of connection with matchroom fighters.
I mean, one question, Andy. Do you watch the Italian fight nights when they're on DAZN? Because I don't on a Thursday night, I'll be honest with you. Do you watch any Spanish fight nights? The odd one I might watch. So these territories that they're breaking into, it takes a lot of time and money, doesn't it? And I'd like to see what the viewing figures are in them territories. I know they've got Spanish football on DAZN. They've got in certain territories. But my view is it's just not working.
The viewing figures can't be great for the UK either, though, mate.
No.
Because there's no way they're getting the same viewers as BT or Sky. It just isn't happening. It isn't happening. Because your casuals, like we've already said, after the football's been on, the boxing comes on straight after. If they've been watching, if they're at home and they've been watching football, the likelihood is they're going to keep the channel on and carry on watching. Because they'll have had a beer, the mates around, blah, 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 blah. Let's carry on watching the boxing. They're not going to watch the football and then go, oh, let me just load my app.
Yeah.
That I haven't bought yet. Let me just load my app. And it just isn't going to happen, mate. It isn't going to happen. They needed to buy BT, and that hasn't happened. So, in my opinion, they're really, really, really struggling. So, you've not only got Queensbury and BT, Frank Warren, you've now got Ben Shalom, Boxer, and Sky Sports, who are making big waves with Top Rank as well, bringing their fighters over for the big shows. You've then
Eurosport.
Yeah. So you've got all of those, and now you've got Probellum, who they're starting off very slowly. They're keeping out of the UK market and the US market for the time being. It isn't going to stay like that. They're only doing that while they build the fighters, while they build the platform, while they iron out any little kinks they've got in the show. Because they've got, in my opinion, we've just spoke about it. In my opinion, they've got everybody in the right places on that platform to succeed. That's
and they've got a free-to-air broadcaster, Eurosport.
Yeah, that's gonna take off, mate. They're going to become massive. They're going to come into the UK market. Eddie Hearn has to be thinking to himself, have I done the right thing here?
He's got a lot of hard work to build that profile. I mean, he's a very good salesperson. He can wax lyrical. There's no one better on a press conference table. No one better in my view. But you've got to have that vehicle behind you. You know, Ben Shalom's often on Sky Sports News now, signing the contract with the fighter, and you got all them casual fans learning who these fighters are and the backdrop to them. So it'd be a very good question to pose to Eddie Hearn, wouldn't it? Hindsight's a great thing, Eddie. You know, have you done the right thing? He'll probably say it's a 5-year business plan. We're only on year 2. You know, we've got 3 years to go. We've got this plan, that plan. The interesting one is whether AJ goes to the zone or not. That's all
going to depend on whether they think people are going to buy their pay-per-view. I mean,
and it will show you where they are financially as a business, because that's going to
you can't, mate. There's no way they can carry on financing gigantic fights. Canelo and AJ are going to demand 20 million each, maybe more than that per fight. You can't sustain that on a $7.99 app buy for a year.
Well, another own goal that they did was putting a marketing campaign saying pay-per-view is dead, and then 12 months down the line they bring a pay-per-view model in.
Yeah, it's not great, and fight fans, even hardcore fight fans, are going to say, "Hold on a minute. So you want to charge me $7.99 anyway, and now you're going to tell me I've got to pay 30 quid pay-per-view? Come on, it don't sit right." They've always known. We've always known Sky do the pay-per-view model, but
Well, Eddie Hearn used to ram it down our throats, didn't he? Saying it, to put these two fighters in a ring, it's got to be a pay-per-view to generate the income. So it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, to pay the fighters. But the thing is, when people buy Sky Sports, they're not buying it for boxing.
No,
They're buying it for football.
as a rule.
So they get in boxing for free. That's the way they look at it. Oh, we're getting boxing for free on a Saturday night. So when it comes to them paying 25 quid for a pay-per-view, you don't mind doing that once in a while.
Yeah, and another interesting angle was, do you remember when Eddie Hearn was saying we're going to price it at a price that will battle against piracy? Because you won't need to stream it on these sites because it's cheap enough to stream it officially.
Yeah.
Well, where's that gone then?
$7.99 is nothing. It's cheap. It's really, really good for what they do. If it kept like that, the problem is when they start then saying, well, the big attraction on our show is Canelo. The big attraction on our show is AJ. But by the way, you're going to have to pay extra to see them fighters.
But the challenge is, Andy, is a very good. Again, I'm not loving Frank Warren today, but he's making some great points. He talks about the Box Nation model, very similar, and he was saying how they was losing money hand over fist. So that's why he came away from Box Nation, because he couldn't generate the income to put the big fights on.
No.
Well, there's a lot of synergy there. It's a very similar platform, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it didn't work, did it? It didn't work.
No. It's still going now, don't get me wrong, but the majority are repeats, aren't there?
It's all that now, isn't it?
Yeah. So
people that add that, you'll probably find 90% of them don't have it anymore.
Andy, crystal ball time. Is DAZN still here in 10-year time?
No.
Interesting.
Straight answer, mate. They can't. Whoever's backing them obviously has big pockets.
He's a billionaire, isn't he?
Yeah. So, but even at some point, it's a toy, isn't it? For these people, these billionaires, like these owners of football clubs, it's a toy.
But they don't get into it to lose money. They don't get to a billionaire status by losing money, do they?
No. So at some point or another, they have to say to themselves, "This just isn't worth it."
Yeah.
It stinks of Satanta.
Yeah. ITV Sport. There's many of them.
Exactly the same. A different model, but the same result. They can't carry on the way they are. It's all. I tell you what, it's all gonna hinge on, because they will bring pay-per-view in, mate. And what'll happen is they'll say, "Oh, we're only bringing it in just for Canelo, and we're only bringing it in just for AJ." But you know what'll happen is they'll start sneaking the other fighters on it.
Yeah.
And it all depends on whether the boxing fans are gonna take it or whether they're gonna say, "Not a chance."
Yeah.
Because if their pay-per-view buys are really bad, because
I already think, and I made this final point at this video. I already think boxing fans are voting with their feet, because you're obviously not getting the subscribers that they thought they was going to get. Is that down to content? Is it down to the production? So a lot of people online are talking about the production. They don't like it. It's not as slick as Sky. You've got to give DAZN time to settle into the market. But there's a lot of question marks around DAZN, a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Andy, thanks for joining. That's the end of the video. So, as ever, Thursday, 7 p.m. Like, comment, subscribe below if you agree or disagree. Me and Andy always read the comments. You can find us on Twitter. We're not hard to find. And we will look forward to seeing you on Thursday on the live show, 7 p.m. Thanks for coming.